Tim Cook recently said that the Mac Mini is an important part of the Mac lineup, though it hasn't been updated in 3 to 4 years, so maybe one could be happening? I know I've been kind of quiet about this topic, even though it's been very, very heavily in demand. Lots of people want me to talk about the Mac Mini. The reason I'm not too interested in it is because it's kind of one of the more budget-friendly Apple computers, which is fine. I'm totally fine with products being more affordable to people. That's great. But it's just not something I'm very interested in because I use laptops or I use desktops. I like having an all-in-one, and a Mac Mini is kind of, you know, like having a cheap, affordable stand that doesn't come with a keyboard or mouse or a monitor. You know, you have to buy other things to attach to it. There's nothing wrong with that. I know that certain people like it, and the Mac Mini was actually fairly upgradable. You can take it apart, can add extra RAM, sometimes extra storage, and the fact that it hasn't been updated in years definitely means that that part of the Apple fandom gets a bit defensive and says, come on Apple, when are you gonna move on? So I can understand that, but because Tim Cook himself is now saying that it is an important part of the lineup and it's likely going to be treated as such, I threw together a couple of ideas of what I would like to see or how you could get me excited about a next generation 2018 Mac Mini. So the first blaring problem with the Mac Mini is that it's using outdated ports, right? Apple's all about USB-C, especially when it comes to Macs. Though, as they have shown on this year's new iMacs, they're not afraid to go the traditional USB port route, or even include some old ports that have been removed on other devices, for instance, SD card slot or headphone jack. So I'm anticipating that since the Mac Mini is a stationary device, a next generation Mac Mini could adopt USB-C heavily, but perhaps still contain traditional USB ports for those people who still want them. So what I'm predicting slash hoping for, it's kind of a blend of both, is I think it would be fair to have 4 USB-C ports, all of them capable of Thunderbolt 3, which would make this thing very powerful, as well as a couple of USB-A 3.0 ports for those more traditional users out there. Perhaps you have some old hard drives that you're going to hook up to your desktop. You can have those 2 traditional ones still there, as well as an SD card slot and headphone jack. And of course, the power port, which would likely be just the same as it is now. I also think to kind of show that it's a new era, that it's a refreshed era of Mac Mini, you could switch it to more of a space gray look. You know, it's got a silverish magnesium look to it now, whereas the iMac Pro is space gray. Now the MacBook Pros and standard MacBooks have a space gray variant. To show that Mac Mini is coming up into 2018, give it a space gray color. That would look pretty neat. And in terms of internals, here's the real wild card. I'm about to lose a lot of people. I can sense it already. I'm about to get everyone going, no, that's not gonna work. But this has been rumored for some time now, and I actually think the Mac Mini would be a good chance for Apple to finally implement this, but I believe that the Mac Mini should be the first Mac to ditch the Intel Core lineup. Heavens! The processors in a Mac won't be Intel? How dare he? I think with the extremely powerful A11 Bionic chip we've seen in the iPhone 8 and 10, seeing that its Geekbench scores have now matched that of a 13-inch MacBook Pro, which, keep in mind, has 4 Thunderbolt 3 ports, that perhaps in the 2018 Mac Mini we could see an A11X chip, specifically designed for desktop class processing. This would be an Apple in-house design chip that is specifically designed for running Mac OS. Now, I know a lot of people right now are saying, but the Apple chips don't have ARM support. They're working on that, okay? It's a processor. It's capable of processing data. It takes some hardware tweaks and it takes some software tweaks, but it is definitely possible, as there's already rumors and leaks that Apple is investigating the idea of designing their own in-house chips for MacBooks down the line, or perhaps iMacs one day. And I think that since the Mac Mini's primary goal is to be affordable, not necessarily to be extremely powerful, equipping the Mac Mini with an in-house design chip would kind of make it a bit more innovative. It could get me excited about it for sure, to see that this is the first time a Mac is ditching the Intel lineup and now trusting that Apple, with their extremely powerful processor chips that they're putting in their iPads and iPhones, can also expand into desktop class architecture. And keep in mind, I didn't say A11 chip, I said A11X. I'm anticipating by the time the Mac Mini is refreshed, a bit of time is going to pass in Apple's history. You know, A11 is now the standard for the iPhone 8 and 10. By 2018, obviously, the Apple processor team will have discovered new things. They will have a new chip that is specifically designed for the Mac Mini and perhaps later the iPad that year. Of course, a different variant that is designed for iOS, but still. I think that if Apple designs the chips in-house, first of all, it can be a lot cheaper because you're not having to pay Intel to make your chips for you. And as well, it could be a lot more optimized. As we've seen in Apple's history, when you have software and hardware that are designed for each other, you get really great performance. If we've seen some of the Geekbench scores on this year's iPhones, we've seen how powerful the Apple processor team can make chips that are designed for their software. I think if they expanded that into the hardware of the Mac lineup, we could truly see some affordability as well as really good processing power, which is, I think, what the Mac Mini lineup really needs. If it is going to be refreshed, that is exactly how I would refresh it. Introduce a new technology that perhaps isn't quite ready for MacBooks or iMacs yet. Maybe we need a couple more years before the Apple processor team is capable of making things that can compete, both with the Intel Core i5s and i7s, but it's definitely possible down the road. I think the Mac Mini would be a great foot in the door to let the consumer market and developer market know this type of technology where Apple designs the chips themselves is possible, and it results in really great performance. I think a Mac Mini with an A11X chip would be very capable, and it could, of course, support multiple displays running at 4K or even 5K via USB-C. And I got one more crazy idea, and I know a lot of people won't get this. But the Mac Mini looks cool, right? You know, it's got the Apple logo on the top, and I said we could do space gray. What if, hear me out, the entire top of the Mac Mini acted like an air power charger? Mac Mini sits on the desk, right? It would be right in front of your workstation. You could have your phone charged there, Apple Watch there, or the next generation AirPods with wireless charging that are coming out in 2018, and hopefully this Mac Mini refresh is coming out then too. You could drop your stuff on it. You know, it's plugged into the wall. It's a power source. It could charge your stuff while also outputting all of the data and power to your two monitors. So that's how you would get me excited for a Mac Mini refresh. I would see that and go like, okay, I see where they're going with this. This is neat. Brand new processor chips. Finally, Apple's designing their own chips for macOS. Kind of having an air power built in that can wirelessly charge all of your devices on top. Adopting USB-C so it can support 4K and 5K outputs on multiple monitors. While also keeping some of the traditional ports in there as well, like the SD card slot and the headphone jack, which I don't think needs to be there by any means, but I'm trying to be a little bit realistic here. Those are the kinds of things I would love to see in a 2018 Mac Mini. Of course, just like before, I'd love to see concepts. Those of you out there want to show me what you imagine it looking like, please let me know. Send them to me on Twitter or wherever. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.